Thursday, February 26th, 3 cards for the energies in play today. I'm using the Morgan Greer deck. Let's see what's going on. First card. Well, there we go. 9 of Pentacles, and she is upright. So if you were worried about finances in your situation, this is one of the most positive cards you could receive here. So Pentacles representing things like wealth, all kinds of materiality, embodiment, abundance, generativity. We see all this animal and plant life in here. And 9 being a card that's on the cusp of completion. This suggests to me that the ducks are just about in a row, so to speak. And so that, oh God, I'm going to mix metaphors here. The ship is ready to come in. It's ready to dock. It's coming down the lane in the harbor right now. So if there is a project you're working on, or if there's an investment that you've been paying attention to, this suggests that we're close to fruition here. And of course, I don't make specific predictions. It's just the conditions, the energy around whatever's happening. So mastery of the physical world, mastery of your pentacles, mastery of materiality. And you can see that she is so comfortable in her embodiment of that right here. She is comfortable in her very voluminous garments. There's a suggestion of a well-tended life here. She's got, I'm not sure if that's a falcon, but perched on her hand, which is gloved. So there's also a certain amount of protection from the abrasiveness of the material world that's implied in this card. So overall, a lot of comfort with materiality. That's something that you can move through and inhabit easily. There's not as much struggle as there might be implied in some other cards. So whatever you're doing it right. Keep it up. Oh, and one more thing about this card before I move on. That falcon energy, that's disciplined instinct. So relying on that inner sense of what the right next action or the right next direction may be is something that you're skilled at. And the falcon also has this ability to see very precisely into situations. So cultivate that if that speaks to you. That's working very well for you so far. Okay, second card. And we have the Queen of Cups, and she is reversed. So upright, this card would imply mastery and skilled embodiment of emotional energy. So the Queen stands in her sovereignty and has very skilled understanding of and control of the emotional energy within her. And you can see how tidy this card is, how she's very well dressed, everything is neat, every hair is in its place. She almost has like this Venus type energy kind of coming out of the water with this shell behind her. But because the card is reversed, that emotional energy is in danger of spilling out of the cup. So emotional flooding could be an issue here. And we had the same kind of energy yesterday, just like emotions are a little bit unchecked at this moment. It's a reminder that we need to be cognizant of our emotional inner tides so that we don't let them overwhelm, swamp, or flood our rational perception of events and our intuitive perception of events. So emotional energy can be so strong sometimes that we need to treat it like a child who's maybe overstimulated in a way. But, we're also reminded here that there's so much power behind emotional energy. A flood of water is something that can't be resisted. So it's just important to make sure that flood gets channeled in the right direction so that it's supporting what's appropriate rather than smothering it. Just to be clear, emotional energy is not the enemy. It's only destructive when it's not channeled or guided in the right way. So if it spills over the banks, then it can destroy crops. But when it's channeled and controlled, it waters our fields so that things can emerge and manifest from there. So honor the emotional energy, just don't let it take over the scenario. Card number 3, and we have the Devil. The Devil is our shadow side, and it's not meant to be a frightening card, just in the same way that the Death card is not meant to be a prognosis of something tragic happening. The Devil is a reminder to look inside ourselves at our own shadows and notice when those have begun to operate in our perception of events and the choices we might be making. So shadow refers to those parts of ourselves that we developed in order to stay safe, usually in childhood, as a response to whatever our situation was growing up. And especially with those of us who have trauma, that shadow stays very well buried, and we don't even understand until we've done our inquiry. We don't know necessarily when it's running us around and inspiring us to make choices or behave in ways that are contrary to our self-interest and our alignment with something higher. So the Devil showing up here, I think, is just a reminder that when that emotional energy comes up, it may be the result of some shadows we haven't attended to. So those strong inner tides, sometimes we feel so overwhelmed by an emotional response that we start to believe that defines our reality, when in fact it doesn't. It is an energetic message from our core that something is moving energetically inside of us. But if we're not attentive to that, and if we're not mindful of it, and if we haven't done sufficient shadow work, we may not know what that is. We might not even be able to identify it. We just think, okay, this situation is whatever I'm feeling right now, and respond from there. And it's always a good idea to inquire in before making a rash decision that might be in response to an old habit that no longer serves, or an old way of being in the world that we have long since outgrown. So the devil is saying, look, you've got all of this abundance or potential for, you're on the cusp of this completion, almost more than you know what to do with. Not necessarily talking about money. Let's remember, this can refer to good health, abundance of experience, social connections, friends, that kind of thing. And so the danger is that we will have emotional flooding coming from our unhealed shadows, or our unintegrated shadows. So this whole spread, I think, is a reminder to stay in touch with the whole landscape of what we're experiencing today. And one more thing to remember here is, when we have everything we need, and when we are less concerned with controlling the situation and kind of exerting our physical impact onto the world around us, and we start to relax because it feels like things are okay, that's when that shadow material tends to rise up. We get a little comfortable, we let down our guard, and so it says, hey, this is a good time to maybe show myself and ask for integration. So whatever's coming up for you, it's just a reminder to stay sensitive to that. Otherwise, the 9 is telling us your external life is not in crisis. In fact, quite the opposite. The Queen reverse says that your emotional system might be a little overactive, or there's a potential for that. And the Devil says we need to be aware of that shadow that could be operating behind the scenes and driving our perception. That's today's read. Like, follow, and share. See you tomorrow.